Hello everybody, Thomas Fleming again. I hope you're having a great day today. We had a nice big storm come through last night. It's going to come through. Nighttime is good as long as there's nothing destructive in it. Lots of rain is good to come at night because then it doesn't mess up your day. It's a beautiful day this morning. I'm looking, I don't see any clouds. I'm under a pavilion. Because I can't camp or I can't do my video at an outside table because they're all soaking wet. So that's the only downside. It'd take half a day for that to clear out. Okay, I've kind of touched on some of this stuff as I've been talking. What I want to do now is talk about, we're in a new year. What do we do? Now, I've talked about it in my, do you have a plan? Are you prepared? Have you thought about it? You have all your New Year's resolutions, pun intended. Don't resist the stuff that's coming in. Just hand it over to God. Say, here, this is yours. This is not my game. This is your game. What do you want me to do today? That's the key. What do you want me to do today? That's all you need to worry about. Okay, so we're going to look at some verses this morning to kind of give us an idea of how we're supposed to do this. I can't see through this. There's too many fingerprints. I don't have a lot of light on me. It's coming from that direction. If I sit over at the other table, it's just bright light right in my face because the sun's still coming up. So it's a good part of the day. Okay, so I'm going to turn to just one quick verse here. Proverbs 24:27. A lot of wise stuff in here. Written mostly by a wise man, but he also collected from other people, and it's all in here. Proverbs is something you should just kind of read, just randomly pick stuff or start from the beginning, go to the end, and go back and do it again. Just add it to your normal reading schedule. Read 3 or 4 verses, read a chapter, whatever you want to do, and just add this to whatever else your schedule is. If you can get this stuff memorized and follow it, you can stay out of a lot of trouble. Okay, 24:27. Prepare your work outside, make it fit for yourself in the field, and afterwards build your house. Okay, what does all that mean? Well, back then everybody worked in the field, so it's not unusual for them to talk that way. Most people did not have a day job where you're sitting there sticking a cog in a whatchamacallit and making a thingamajig. You went out and worked in the field. So just in plain simple English, prepare your day to make your living. That's the most important thing. That's the first thing you want to do. Now, how do you do that? We'll get to that in a second. But basically, focus on making a living first and then worry about where you're going to stay. In other words, if you're going to move someplace, to another state, for instance, make sure you've got a job first. And then go look for a place to stay. Because you've got to be able to stay close to your work. You don't want a job in North Texas and live in South Texas. That's a big state. Okay. Well, let's see what all we got to really do with this now. So now I'm going to turn to James 4:13. Come now, when you say, today or tomorrow we will go and do such a thing in such a city and spend a year there, buy and sell and make a profit, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills. And that's the key. If the Lord wills you to do something, then we shall live and do this or that. But how you boast in your arrogance, all such boasting is evil. If you do, therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not, to him it is sin. So, anything you do, I don't care what it is, include God in on it. Check with him on it. Make sure it's okay. He wants us to be happy. He's not going to say no just to be belligerent and make you suffer. No. Only the devil does that. And too many people get caught up in that and think it's God and wonder what's going on. Make sure you're following the right star, the right God, and not the false one. And there are many false ones out there, and even more so now than there have been in many years. And we're told about that. But that's why I tell you, every morning, start your day with God. A prayer in the morning. Even if it's just a very simple starting prayer before you get out of bed and before your feet hit the floor. Forgive me, Father, as I come before you in the name of Jesus. Just establish that connection. And then you can go into your routine. You can go ahead and pray then, or you can have breakfast and then pray. But pray in the morning to God for the basic needs of that day. If you're going to eat first, thank him for the meal. It says to pray without ceasing. I don't even think about it. If I get things a little bit out of order and there's not a lot of time in between, it doesn't matter as long as you do it. So always prepare your day with God. He will take you through everything, every challenge that you're going to have. And there are challenges. He'll get you through that. If you're unable for some reason because you're discomfort, you're in pain or whatever, then start your day with, I'm here to serve you. If it be your will, please help me to deal with my problem today, my pain today. Help it to go away or for me to have the strength to deal with it. Sometimes problems that we deal with are for our own good because they're to prepare us or they're to strengthen us. So many of us have weaknesses that we don't want to admit or don't want to give up. When we give them up, God will strengthen those areas. If you ever go to the gym to work out, you don't just always work on your forearms. If you do, you look like Popeye. You got to work on your arms. You got to work on your shoulders. See, I slouch a lot because I've got a bad back, and I have to watch that. So I'm supposed to work on my back muscles more than I do, and that's a problem because I forget, because I don't have a regimen. If I had a gym to go to, I have a regimen that I do there. But when I'm out like this, I forget. And I catch myself slouching, and it's, sit up straight. You ever remember back when you were a kid in school and you'd be slouching and the teacher would yell at you to sit up straight? Well, posture is good. Good posture allows your body to function better than bad posture. Okay, but it's a habit. You've got to start the habit, and that's my problem. I get started and then I get distracted. Squirrel. We all have things that will distract us. I don't have the money for this bill this month. What am I going to do? Pay part of it. Do what you can. Cut back on something else. Maybe we're going to go do a trip. If you haven't got the money to pay your bills, you should be paying your bills first. You might have to shuffle around. Call them up and tell them you're going to be late. Let them, talk to these people. If it's a financial issue. If you're having health problems, go see a doctor. Most, if not 99% of the doctors are out there looking out for us physically. There's a few that want to buy a new boat and will see the patients as fast as they can. But most doctors will help, so don't be afraid of them. So you can't afford to go to a doctor. Pray about it, because you really can't afford not to. We are to stay healthy. In olden days, they didn't really have a lot in the way of medicine. It's only been a fairly new thing that we've got. But look around. If you can't afford it, there are agencies that can help. Contact these agencies. I'm fortunate, for the most part, that I've got VA insurance. And if you're young, that's something to think about. You can rely on a lot of things from the government if you're working for the government. There are many tasks in the military that you can do that don't have to involve war per se. The only time I ever fired a gun was at a target. And I'm a Vietnam veteran, but I was on a ship. The ship fired shells, but I wasn't part of the fire team, fire control team, or whatever they're called now, I don't remember. I worked on radar. So you can find ways to still go in the military if you're young and not be involved directly in war. I don't think the United States is going to be in a world war. Not with the clowns we have running things right now. We're lining up to be the world circus, not the world superpower. That seems to match the end times because we're not really talked about. There's a couple of places that people say, well, that has to be the United States. No, it doesn't has to be because it doesn't say so. Be careful when you pull stuff out of context and say this has to be the way it is. You don't know. We're dealing with all kinds of rumors and innuendos and things of, they're falsehoods, but they're attempts to try to understand. So I forgive people for trying to understand, but don't go telling people this is the way it is, unless you tell them this is the way it could be. But I don't know. And make sure you let people know. You don't know. There's no proof. We don't know when the rapture is. It's soon. It has to be, because we're looking around us. We're already in the book of Revelation because we've seen the Revelation 12 sign. But where was that in the scheme of things? We don't know. It doesn't tell us. God doesn't tell us that at 2 o'clock a bluebird's going to sit over on that tree branch. Do you know how much information we'd be swamped with if He gave us every bit of detail about everything going on in the world? We'd be so overwhelmed we'd just roll up in a ball and cry. He doesn't tell us everything. We don't need to know. And a lot of the stuff that's coming, we don't need to know because it's designed for those left behind, so that they will know. Now, we got to know enough about it to warn them about it, but we don't have to know the details. We don't have to know what the stinging hornets are that are released from the pit. All we have to know is that they're released from the pit and they cause pain. That's all you have to know. You don't have to know what they are, where they come from exactly, what they look like. They're just painful. And they're to get people's attention. God doesn't start off with a catastrophic earthquake wiping out half the population. He starts off gradually. Now, these are things to get people's attention. It's the same process that went on with Egypt and Pharaoh. He started off with discomfort, things that were out of the ordinary, things that smelled bad, things that looked bad. He didn't kill the firstborn until the very last thing. And he had all those opportunities in between to say, okay, you can go. But he wouldn't do it. He kept hardening his heart. don't harden your heart. There are people in the world that will, and you can't reach them, and there's nothing we can do about it. Talk to them, present them the information, and move on if they don't want to know more. That's all you can do. All right, what else do we have here? I've got Philippians. Is that what this is? Yes. Philippians 3:13. Okay, brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended. He hasn't got it figured out, not all of it. We won't have it figured out. When we leave here, we won't know everything until we get to heaven. And at some point up there, we're going to know everything, and we don't need to know it down here. This is not our home. We don't have to know everything down here. We just have to know enough to get us up to the point where we're getting out of here. So Paul's saying, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to the things which are ahead. Always be looking forward. I press forward to the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. Always be looking forward. You can't change the past. No matter what you do, you can't change the past. You can learn from it. We need to look at 2022 and learn from it. What mistakes did we make? Did we learn from those mistakes? If we didn't, we're going to repeat those mistakes. As we go into 2023, go in it with a positive attitude. Now, you can go, well, I'm positive it's going to be a bad year, but that's not what I'm talking about. Go into it with a smile, with a positive attitude that whatever happens, you're going to be fine. That doesn't mean you won't suffer. That doesn't mean you won't be hurt. That doesn't mean people won't pick on you or kid you or mock you or call you liars. People will do anything that Satan tells them to do if they don't have Christ. That's the thing. We got to make sure that everybody gets Christ, because then Satan has no way of indwelling people. There are more demons out there than we even want to realize, and they're happy to take over somebody and come after us, but they can't if we've got Christ in us and we trust Jesus to protect us. Now, he may let them get close to us just to kind of alert us that we're maybe not in the right spot. God uses different ways to talk to us. I long for the day that we can hear him speak to us audibly, where we know this is what we're supposed to do. We don't have that. None of our founding fathers had that either. Moses would be the closest to any of the founding fathers that would have had that connection with God. And I just talked about him, that he had his issues. He could freely talk to him, but then sometimes he would go too far. Well, we can freely talk to him too, and just learn from Moses that there is a limit. Respect the being, respect the man of God. It's hard for us to imagine God. It's just an infinite being. How do you imagine that? You can't. So God gave us Jesus so we can at least have a man to imagine. But he was an average man. He wasn't handsome per se. He wasn't physically strong like a strong man like Samson, or he wasn't a kid like David, as much as because we don't really have an image of his childhood. We only know what he kind of did during his ministry. He didn't start till he was 30. For those of us that have had a late blooming career, I've had a number of them, but this type of career is a career now for me. I did a lot of Bible studies, but I never took on a full role doing something like this until recently. And I'm well past 30. But I've got a God who's faithful and will help me to get through all this that I need to be able to do this. I've had some struggles lately trying to get these messages out. I'm in a park that's got good cell signal. I'm looking at parks now to make sure that if they're out in the middle of nowhere, it's got to have cell signal or Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi okay, but I'd rather have cell signal. It's more important because I can then work with that. Wi-Fi, I sometimes, like at my last campsite, we'd show up, 20 people would show up wanting to use the Wi-Fi, and it's just not capable of handling that. But if it had cell signal, it's a little better. And I've got the tools to work with that. Okay, is that all I had on my notes? I did have a couple of things here. Succeeding in anything is 90% preparation, 10% perspiration. If you work your plan out, what you actually physically have to do is easy. If you sit down and just don't have a plan and just start going in whatever direction, you're going to be tossed to and fro, as the Bible says. It's not good. You need to have a stable rock to be basing everything on. In order to do that, you have to have a connection with God every day. You can't tell people, as James said, that I'm going to do this or that. I said a long time ago that I was going to try to go west, but I also have to make sure I add to that, Lord willing, because I don't know. I know that I would love to go back and just kind of visit some of the sites in California. I don't want to have anything to do with the craziness out there. But the national parks are still national parks, and state parks are still state parks. But I'm afraid of going out there in one degree, in that they are, of most states that are leaning in that direction, susceptible to get some of the wrath of God coming out. What happens if they have a major earthquake and I'm out there? Well, my tent's not going to really collapse and kill me, per se, but it may completely knock out the infrastructure. I'm not completely prepared to boondock 100%. So I'd have to think about that. I was thinking about going to Quartzsite, Arizona, to their RTR that they have out there, their gathering. If you're an RVer, you probably have heard about Bob Wells and his cheap RV living site. He's got a lot of tips if you're trying to figure out how to camp in that. I don't know his religious persuasion. Too many people try to sound religious when they shouldn't be, because they're not. One guy I was talking to here in the camp where I'm at now was, oh, we just all have to be good people. Hindus are going to make it to heaven. And, yeah, you can only do so much. Plant some seeds and move on. You can't, they're not open. They're not in dire need. It seems like the only time people turn to God is when they're in dire need. You go, well, why do we have adversary type stuff on this planet? It's because that's the only time people turn to God. That's why things are going to get bad here soon, really bad, because that's the only time people turn to God. Nobody else can help them. They go to their last reserve spot and talk to God, saying, nobody else can help me. I can't help me. It's all up to you. Well, he doesn't mind being called on. He doesn't really like to have to push people that far. But if that's the only way people will listen, that's why the times are going to get tough. It's the only time people will listen. Now, if we're smart and we're already Christians, we're going to see that and we're going to take advantage of that. If people are in need, they need God more than they need anything else in their life. Then they need whatever else they need to survive. But God first, always God first. So that's why we have to be prepared, not just in our lives, but for the world, because it's going to get rough. And the longer we stay here, the more we can help. Yeah, I want to go out of here soon too. But I don't want anybody else to die permanently. We got to get them born again. Got to tell them about Jesus. That's been our Great Commission from the beginning. And I don't know what I've told you before, but I don't know what the death count is. It's in the thousands per day or per hour. I don't know what it is. It's an enormous amount of people that die every day on this planet because there's 8 billion people here. How many of those have made the right decision? Not the majority. That's the sad part. So we've got work to do. Keep doing it. Stay close to God and you won't find that you're going to be where you shouldn't be. Because God knows every safe place on the planet. He knows every dangerous place. And of course, Satan would love you to be in a dangerous place. So he's going to give you all kinds of advice. It can be your friends. It can be something you find on the internet. It could be a YouTube video. That's why I don't tell you to do anything. But first go to God. Ask him, and then listen. And do whatever he tells you. Whatever he tells you to do. As long as it's God. And if you're not sure, you can test him. He doesn't mind that. He wants you to be sure. He doesn't want you to be fooled. There's going to be many false prophets, many false messiahs. There's the big one coming. I don't think we're going to be here when the big one's here, though. Because we would spot him, and we would tell him to go away, and in the power of Jesus, he would have to go away. The devil is not stronger than God by any means. He could never beat him. And when he gets cast down to the earth, he's being cast down by God's angels. He and his angels aren't stronger than God's angels. But he still thinks he can beat God. Utter foolishness. Okay. Always have a plan. Always pray. Always be in the Word. And be happy. That's what we're supposed to do down here. You think Adam and Eve were happy in the Garden of Eden before the sin? Probably. God would come down and talk to them. We're going to get back to that. But we can have a bit of it here. Just a bit. We can't get all of it. Because we still have a sin nature and we live in a sinful world. Until God replaces it. But we can have glimpses of it from moment to moment. Look forward to the new year. Not for what you're going to gain, but what you're going to be able to do for God. All right. I don't know if I'm going to do any footage right now. I did a little bit. Well, I included some yesterday, I think. Where I'm at right now is just a standard park. You can just see there's trees behind me and there's some tables here and I'm under a pavilion. And this is a bayou, not a beach. I've been trying to get on the beach, and the only way I can do that is primitive camping. And there'd be no cell signal, no electricity. So I'm trying to avoid that. I don't mind being close enough to drive to it, but I don't have my next place picked out yet. God said wait, so I'm waiting. I don't know where I'm going. I keep thinking I'm going west, and I just did go west because I left Georgia to come here. Do I have to go back to Georgia? I don't know yet. I'm getting mixed feelings, so pray for me on this. There are campsites out there. I just have to pick where I want to go. But there's a big gap between where I'm at and there's some national parks in Texas, but there's only like one or two in Louisiana that have camping. There are national reserves and preserves and wildlife areas and all kinds of things, but not everyone has camping. So, got to find that. And it's got to be someplace that's got signal. So, pray for me. I've got 3 more days, I think. The 7th is when I have to be out of here. I might go ask if they've got, another campsite I can move to and stay here for a few more days. The storm that went through here was fairly mild. It was, it rained a lot, but it's, a lot worse north. Georgia had a lot of tornado warnings. I don't know. I haven't seen the news yet to see if they had any in there. If I was in Georgia, I'd be under a tornado watch yesterday for the storm. Here, I'm not. So I can stay I'm only here for 5 days in this stay, so I can still stay here. So I'm going to go talk to them and see if I can stay a few more days. I might have to change campsites, but that's not a big deal. I can do it. There aren't that many campsites here, and right now, all but one are full. But I don't know what it's going to be like in 3 days, so I'm going to go check. So pray for me, and then I got to figure out what I'm doing next. All right. We are going to meet in the clouds, and soon. It can't be very long. I'm just looking at the world, so don't lose hope. But there's hope here too. God's here just as much as he is in heaven. He's omnipresent, remember? Till we meet in the clouds, God bless. I'm down at one of the parks, and these beautiful old trees are up here. Quite a number of them out here. On the coast. That's the Gulf out there, and I just felt a drop of water on me. We're not supposed to get a lot of rain, but we might get a little bit today. But it's definitely foggy. I'm going to see how close I can get to the water. Somewhere out there are barrier islands. There goes I don't know if you got a chance to see him, but a pelican. Yeah, I felt a second drop, a third drop. Here comes the rain. My car is 100 yards away. Oh well. The bigger storm front is north of us here, we're getting the little tail edges that go by. If it doesn't get any worse, I'm okay. I'll stay out here, but if we get more, I may have to go in. This time of year, because it is a little cold, I've got a long sleeve shirt on, but it's open in the front and my sleeves are rolled up just to kind of take the edge off. But it's too cold for the critters, most of them. This is a Gulf Island park. There are alligators here, but just like the last park, they're going to stay out of the way. Look at these crazy old trees. All right, time for me to head back, I guess. I was hoping we get some sunshine. The next couple of days, I think tomorrow's rain. The next 3 after that are sunshine, so we'll get out and get some good pictures. I walked just a little ways up from where I was in my other video. Oh, we got a bird flying. And I have a little marina here. This is the Gulf. It's not a lake. I can smell the salt air. Oh, that brings back good memories. I used to live on the coast, and that smell. I used to live in San Francisco back when it was a nice city. You go down to the fishing areas and you can smell the salt air and you can smell the fish. You can hear the seagulls squawking and the sea lions barking. Some kind of a little fishing bird out there. Trying to dive down and look for fish. worry about a rating. I'll get it back to my car eventually. So we got some kind of a little fish chart here of what we've got. Snapper, flounder. Those are the local fish. I would imagine here the local fish are okay. That almost looks like a fishing national park service, so that's one of their boats. I guess if someone's in trouble, they go out in that boat. There's other boats there that look like maybe fishing boats. You go further on up, there's more landings. They're hard to see in this weather, but there's more out there. Well, since it's overcast and you can't see much, and you can look back over there and you can see some tables underneath those trees. That's where I was before. This is this part of the park is part of the bayou, and it's not the sandy beaches that are on either side. It's got much of a wildlife refuge type look to it. So, a foggy day.